As most of you know, me, like many other gaming commentators, are having a lot of trouble with the platform right now. A lot of yellow symbols. And we need to find better ways to make sure we can stay here and be self-sufficient and keep providing you guys content. Audible recognized that, so today's video, thankfully, is sponsored by Audible. They support people like me and allow me to continue to do this, thankfully. You can start listening with Audible today with an Audible 30-day trial. You get your first ebook completely free, as well as 2 Audible originals, just by visiting audible.com/cleanprints or by texting cleanprints to 500-500. I'm gonna talk way more about this at the end of the video, but if you do want to support this channel, make sure I do it. Make sure to check that out. Welcome back to Too Tall Desk, where today we have a doozy. Did you know that you're to blame for all of the bad going on in the gaming world? Did you know that you are the problem? Well, I'm here to tell you today that EA knows something you don't. And you all have been bad boys and girls. See, EA doesn't seem to understand, well, nearly anything at all at this point. What EA seems to think is that EA makes a lot of money. Certain things EA does makes a lot of money. FIFA, Madden, and so on. And they think if something makes a lot of money, that something is good. Well, I have news for EA. There's a lot of things that make a lot of money that aren't good. Transformers movies, the 4th Indiana Jones, literally anything Anna Kendrick is in. All things that make a lot of money, all things that aren't of quality. EA seems to believe that the more they blame other people, the less culpability they have to endure, the less they have to look at themselves and say, hey, are we doing something wrong? Recently, the CEO of EA, Andrew Wilson, sat down with GameBiz and said some of the most mind-bogglingly stupid crap I have ever heard a CEO say in my life. It requires an immense lack of business understanding. It requires an incredible amount of, I guess you could call it naivete. It requires so much oversight into what's going on at your own company that in reality, it's clear, it's proof. This interview, if anything, is proof that EA knows what's happening, and all they're doing now is marketing the failures. Andrew Wilson's conversation with GameBiz went about as poorly as it could from the jump. Immediately, it was damage control mode. Want to know what EA thinks of Anthem? EA thinks Anthem is great. Not only does EA think Anthem is great, but using a metric I'm about to explain, EA believes that the majority of the community playing it, or at least a good enough amount of the majority of the people playing it, are enjoying it. They think it's good. Now, I don't know if you've been on the Anthem subreddit, aka basically hell at this point, but those people, the people that are most supporting the game, the people that are most supporting BIOWARE, the people that deserve the most out of this game, don't really agree. Here's a quote directly from Wilson. We found ourselves in the middle of a pretty challenging conversation at launch. The game, even at launch, was, I don't want to go as far to say a great game, but it was a really good game. It had some issues with the progression system, and the team made a lot of promises about what they were going to put into the game, but I'd like to believe that a lesser company would have just tossed it and move on. Wilson also touted the game's 30-point net promoter score, increase since the game's launch. GameBiz notes that more than 25 points of that increase were in the last year. Now, a net promoter score, for those of you that don't know, is the measurement of a consumer's satisfaction ranging from -100 to 100. It's basically a scale that's designed to take a product, an entertainment product, and decide, okay, are the majority of people enjoying this product, or are less than the majority of people not enjoying it? Instead of using a 0 to 100 scale where the satisfaction is measured across the board in the scale of only the positive, it measures that score in the negative as well. So you can get an idea of just how many people dislike the property in its entirety, as opposed to just how much someone does or doesn't like something. As GameBiz notes, a score less than 0 indicates that there is more negative consumer sentiment than positive. A result greater than 0 suggests that more of the community feels positively than negatively. Game Daily notes that the score for Anthem at this point, according to an EA spokesperson, so take that with the largest grain of salt you've ever seen in your life, is well into the positive, which implies that the majority of people playing Anthem are high on the experience of playing Anthem. Again, GameDaily.biz, where all of this takes place, breaks it down a little bit more. But let's start there. Shall we, Andrew? Here's what I can absolutely assure you, without segueing into the realities of buying these scores, which, by the way, companies do quite often. Without segueing into that reality, there is no way that taking that score, without swaying that score into the realities that exist today, And what I mean by that is, without taking that score and saying, all right, let's just look at these kinds of people that purchase the game. Let's look at the consumers that we can show only play this amount of the game. Let's take a look at the consumers without manipulating that score. There is no way that score is in the positive. There's a 0% chance. You know the people who dictate the enjoyment of the game the most? Usually the people that commit the most time to it. Those are the people that are going to be your best indicators for how much a game has improved from a qualitative perspective or how quality it is when it comes out in the first place. Those people are usually people sitting on the subreddits, like the Anthem subreddit, which by the way is not very positive about the experience from day one until now. Once this interview breaks past the facade of game score, we start to see what EA really thinks happened or says they think happened with Anthem. And it's your fault, it's my fault, it's our fault. As the interview notes, there is something in Anthem for different kinds of players. After about 40 hours of playtime, these different groups began to experience friction with each other and the content. The result was diminishing enjoyment over longer playtimes. Andrew Wilson says, we brought together these two groups of players who were making this emotional value calculation on two different vectors. One was traditional BIOWARE story-driven content, and the other was this action-adventure type content. About the 30 to 40 hour mark, they really had to come together and start working in on the Elder game. To clarify, what he seems to mean there is that this was only going to work if the community worked together to enjoy and experience the content. If the community did not work together, this was not going to work. At that point, he says, oh, hang on a minute, everybody kind of went, now the calculation is off. Because I've got a friend who sits in this other category of player. They want to play the game a certain way. I want to play the game a certain way. The promise was we can play together, and that's not working very well. Oh, by the way, I'm used to 100 hours of BIOWARE story, and that's not what I got. Or I expected that this game would have meaningfully advanced the action component that we'd seen in games like Destiny before, and I don't feel like it has. What Andrew Wilson is saying there is that they built this game for everybody, but unfortunately, there were too many different types of players involved, and not everybody understood what they needed to do to get their enjoyment out of the game. Now, he alludes to the fact that maybe, just maybe, BIOWARE made a game that wasn't for anybody. But as he continues in the interview, he makes it clear that that's not what he believes. What he believes is there was a really good game there. People just didn't quite get it after they got to the 30 to 40 hour mark. They were expecting something else, and it's their fault for not coming together and understanding that this is not what that thing was. Now let's be abundantly clear here and break down the two people Andrew Wilson is talking about. The people that expected a BIOWARE-like story from this BIOWARE game, they expected it because you, EA, said that's what they were going to get. You told everybody on a multitude of occasions that what this game was going to be was for people that wanted BIOWARE stories. The BIOWARE story was not going anywhere. This is going to be a BIOWARE game through and through. There's going to be a narrative. There's going to be choices. There's going to be all of these things that you promised. You told players they were going to get this giant, meaningful BIOWARE story. And for all the people saying, well, we thought this was going to meaningfully advance the action genre we've seen in things like Destiny, that's because you said it would. That's why they expected that. They expected that because you said this was an advancement of the MMO-like genre. You said this is an advancement of the gameplay realities you see in this little subgenre. You told everybody that Anthem was the next big thing. This is a 10-year plan. This is going to take the MMO-like genre and move it forward in a meaningful way. You said that. You told players they were going to get both of those things, and now you're saying that the problem is, the reason Anthem failed is because people expected those two things, and that's not what you provided, even though that was never your intent. That's absolute absurdity. And this isn't the first time that EA has blamed players for Anthem. They have on a multitude of occasions said that the backlash they're seeing is overwhelming and it's hyperbolic and there's no excuse for it. And we're the reason, the word of mouth is the reason Anthem is failing. And the word of mouth is the reason Anthem's not doing well. It's not the game's fault. It's not the problems of the game. It's the word of mouth. And there's precedence for this. Before the game launched, do you remember that article that came out, that expose that came out that said the people at BIOWARE are really upset with the gaming community? They think they're being unfairly targeted. People are being too hard on the game on YouTube. YouTubers are being too harsh on it, and they're saying things that aren't true. Like, we are seeing this from BIOWARE's game. We're seeing the E3 demo, and this doesn't look like real gameplay. This doesn't look like they're going to be able to follow through on this. These promises are too much. And BIOWARE went, you're being too hard on us. We don't understand. We're just trying to make a good game. It's going to be great, but all the bad word of mouth is really weighing down on us. Yeah, That's because we saw this coming from a mile away. I've said it once and I'll say it again. A year and a half before Anthem came out, I made a video titled Anthem Should Scare You, and I meant it. Sure, the title is stupid, but that's not the point. The point is, I made that video because everything in Anthem's development was going wrong. People were leaving the development. Creative directors were leaving. Writers were leaving. Programmers were leaving. There was talk of turmoil underneath the surface. Everything coming out of that studio was bad news. And then BioWare sat there going, hey everybody, stop talking about us. Stop talking about us. We're gonna do this right. We got this. We don't need your input. Clearly you did. Clearly you did. BioWare and EA have been blaming players for the problems of this game for a year, since before it came out. And it's totally unacceptable from a business perspective. But the interview isn't over. In the interview, Andrew Wilson compares BioWare's output to Spielberg. Spielberg may not have hit a home run with Ready Player One, but you'd be a fool not to bet on the Indiana Jones director's next movie. Likewise, Wilson said that he'd bet on BioWare every day and twice on Sunday, despite BioWare Edmonton's stumbles with Anthem and now closed BioWare Montreal's challenges with Mass Effect Andromeda. That is hilarious, Andrew. Good one. But really? You'd bet on BioWare every day and twice on Sunday? Then why did you close BioWare Montreal after you forced the studio to shove Mass Effect Andromeda into an engine that was not prepared to handle it, and then close them down when, surprise, surprise, the product you rushed out, the studio that you purged before the release of the game to go work on Anthem, didn't work out? That's a lie. You guys are betting on BioWare. You're betting on cash, and when the cash doesn't flow and you lose your bet, you duck and run. To pretend that you are supporting this studio would be an absolute fallacy. We've seen the reports. Look at Jason Schreier's expose. You rushed this game out from day one, and let's be clear. Let's not exonerate BioWare from wrongdoing here. They were just as complicit in this game's failure. But good lord, do I not believe for a second that if EA had left this alone, BioWare could have made something greater. There is no doubt in my mind this game would be better without EA's input. You've seen it. EA wanted to rush things out. EA wanted to show things too early. All of the stuff that went wrong with Anthem at a high level, at the levels of these are executives making these decisions, were EA decisions. There are talks of, well, one party wanted to remove flying from the game, and so one party removed flying from the game, and the other party said, let's put it back in. And there have been conflicting reports saying that EA was the one that said to put the flying back in and BioWare wanted to remove it. Let's say that's true. Do you think maybe that's because BioWare knows how to make a game and maybe there was something else that needed to be focused on? Sure, at the end of the day, traversal is the best part of Anthem, but good lord, I'd rather the whole game be good than one part of it be great and the rest of it be terrible. Wilson continues by saying IPs live for generations and runs in these 7 to 10 year cycles. So if I think about Anthem on a 7 to 10 year cycle, it may not have had the start that many of us wanted, including our players, but I feel like the team is really going to get there with something special and something great because they've demonstrated that they can. I want to be very clear about this, and this is something I said well before Anthem came out. Anthem is not going to succeed. No matter what you do to Anthem, it is not going to succeed. It is, from a very foundational perspective, too flawed of an experience to succeed on the level that EA needs it to succeed. I'm not saying, first off, BioWare should do everything they can to please the hardcore community of Anthem because they deserve it. That their time and money have been wasted at this point, they deserve better. But look at Cataclysm. Look at what was shown at E3, this big, giant, beautiful storm, and oh my god, what's happening? And then it's this blue tinted, extra tiny raid thingy. Like it's unreal what EA thinks is going to turn this around and what actually could. The answer is nothing. But the answer is mostly nothing because Andrew Wilson is once again just saying whatever he thinks people want to hear to get them to buy their next game. EA is going to support Anthem for the foreseeable future. Not because EA needs to support Anthem for the foreseeable future. EA is going to need to sell their next game. And EA is going to support Anthem in a way that does not cost them a lot of money and does not cost them too much of their resources for, I would imagine, as much time as it takes them to get the next Dragon Age game out. Or the amount of time it takes them to get the next big experience to distract away from this out. Anthem will receive what I like to call marketable support. Support that looks good, support that sounds good for the people that aren't actually playing Anthem. Support for the people just looking on the outside and wondering, should I buy the next Dragon Age game? Oh, look at this. They've supported Anthem, they've kept up with Anthem, they've been trying to make Anthem better. That's a good sign. Marketable support. EA over and over again has said things like, we're gonna stop doing so many loot boxes. We've heard you guys, we get it. all of these things. And then they just recently went to UK Parliament and said they love loot boxes. And they're not loot boxes, they're surprise mechanics. And they're great, and players really enjoy them. EA is all about being marketable, and in EA's defense, they're incredibly good at it. They are incredibly good at marketable support. They constantly make people think they're getting more than they really are, or they're going to get more than they really are, until it no longer serves them a function. Mass Effect Andromeda received post-launch support for just long enough for them to go, okay, that's too much money, that's enough resources, let's move on, there's more to focus on. Next big thing launched, Mass Effect Andromeda was dead. And Anthem will probably get a little bit longer term support because this is such a high profile release. EA doesn't get it. EA thinks the people that aren't spending their money or time are the problem. The people talking about these things on the internet are the problem. The people spreading the word of mouth are the problem. Not them. Always. Not the studios. And that's never gonna change. At least not anytime soon. But now I wanna know what you guys think. What do you think about EA's inability to, I don't know, self-reflect? Look at things for what they really are. Act like an ethical business. What do you think about Anthem? Can anything get you back into Anthem? Are you still playing Anthem? Could anything at all get you to play this game at this point? Let me answer any of those questions down in the comments below. It's up for real conversation. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you're not yet subscribed, press subscribe. Also, really quickly, as I said at the beginning of this video, today's video was thankfully sponsored by Audible. Like I said, if you go to audible.com/cleanprints or text cleanprints to 500-500, you can get a 30-day Audible trial. You get your first audiobook completely free, as well as 2 Audible originals completely free. It's an incredible deal. I love Audible. I do very frequently do my listening on Audible. A book I'd recommend is one I recently listened to. It's called Console Wars. It's all about that original console war between Sega and Nintendo. It's an incredible read. I love that book. But it's worth pointing out, every single month, you as a member of Audible is going to get to choose 1 audiobook and 2 Audible originals every single month. So there's a lot of books out there that are gaming centric or tech centric that they have on Audible. They're wonderful. If you want to support this channel and support me, go over there. It's a 30-day trial. There's no risk. It'll help this channel tremendously. People like Audible are what allow us to continue to do this, even though we keep trying to be deplatformed, I guess. So yeah, if you head over to Audible using my link, it'll be in the description down below. It not only helps me out, but it'll help you out too, and you get a lot of cool stuff. So yeah, that's it for me. As always, I do have Games vs. Food on another channel. I'll put a link to it in the description if you want to check that out. It's my second channel. I do weird kind of game reviews over there with food. It's confusing. Go check that link out. And until next time, guys, I'm out.